Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Leigh, and today I wanted to share with you my great start of the year for reading. The month of January was epic. I read so many great books, so I'd love to share them with you, so let's get into it. The first book that I read during the month of January was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the second book in the duology of Six of Crows, and I just wanted to finish the series quickly so that I would have it wrapped and so that I could form an opinion. And I gotta tell you guys, these books are really good and wonderful reading material. I so enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as much as the first one, maybe even more. Aside from the execution of the book itself, this one has a red edges to its pages and the other one had black pages. The execution from the design point of view is crazy good, but the book itself is just fantastic because you fall in love with all of the characters even more. I feel like from a character development point of view, this book has been so much better than the first one because we got to discover Jesper's character so much more, and I really love Jesper, and I really love Wyland's character development in this book, so I was super pumped for that. As usual, Nina is just my heart and soul. I love this girl, and Inej and Kaz are just bae, so there isn't much to be said about that, but I really love the whole heist appeal of the first book, and also in the second book there's also always an element of us being not informed about certain parts of the book, so we're only kept guessing as a reader, so that's also really exciting, and I found this book wonderful, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next I read Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is a new release that came out in autumn 2016, in November if I'm not mistaken, and this is a really cool book. I really recommend it to everyone because the setting and the premise of the book is very unique. It's following a futuristic human society in which death is no longer as common as it is today because the factors that are leading to death are terminated, and when a person dies he can be just revived at the revival center. So unless you're not revived, you're pretty much living for a very long time, and to control the populace there is an order of Scythedom which is entitled to killing people, or they call it gleaning. So they have their yearly quotas and they are doing their best to match them, and every single Scythe has his own right to select people, and basically this is the story of two apprentices to the same Scythe who are trying to figure out where they fit in this society, whether they want to become Scythes, whether this is something they should consider, and this is a very morally questionable aspect of the book which I really enjoyed so much because this is a gray area. I mean, killing people, this is a world where it's normal for other people to kill people in general. Is that still morally correct if you're just playing the part of death and you're playing the part of a spectator? If you're doing it without any bias, does that make it better? Does that make it right? So this is something that was wonderful to explore, and I love the characters, and I'll be reading the sequel to this as well. After Scythe I read Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. You've probably heard about this sci-fi novel because it's a very unique format. It's told with a lot of files. We're following different ships and conversations between our main heroes, and this is a story that is really fast-paced and it keeps you on the edge. It's very good. I gave it 4 stars because it didn't pull me deeply enough to give it 5 stars, mostly because I felt a certain element of predictability towards the end of the book, and also because I think that characters could have used more character development. And the interesting part about this book is that there is a lot of military organizations involved in this book, which puts it into a very interesting perspective for our heroes to live through, because the army always has very strict guidelines and our heroes don't always follow them, and this is something that was very interesting for me to see in this novel. I sure as heck love this one. This was a great pick-me-up because I was sick at the time, and reading it in such an unusual format, it really kept me going really quickly, so I got through this one like in a matter of hours, honestly. as it usually is with really good books. Next on, I read Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, or Sepetys, I'm not sure about the pronunciation of her surname, but this is a piece of historical fiction set in World War II, but it's told from the side of the Germans in the world. It basically features a bunch of heroes that, well, not heroes really, but a bunch of characters that are trying to get away from Germany that is soon to be occupied by the Russian forces, and they're trying to get away from the most awful areas by boarding a ship that will take them away to hopefully safety or some sort of escape. And it's a story about Germans, about Lithuanians, about every little person that got caught up in the world, and it features young adult characters and their struggles, and it's such a good book. I really enjoyed it. I quite liked Ruta Sepetys' writing style. It was easy to follow. I really like the historical fiction aspect of it, and the multiple perspective thing was really also good because we got to follow the perspective of each of the characters, even the unlikable ones, which I really appreciated because it showed Ruta's skill. I think I will probably read Between Shades of Grey. This is another book set in the same time period with a couple of distantly related characters, so I'd really love to explore that one as well. I think I gave it 4 stars because it didn't quite hit me right in the feels as I was waiting for it to happen, as it happened to me with The Book Thief, because The Book Thief really just murdered me. It broke my heart, it tore me inside out, I was sobbing in transport. This is not what happened at all with this book. Salt to the Sea felt really quite more mellow, but I still appreciated it, and I think that this book might make some people feel quite more than I did. Just so you know, I read 10 books in the month of January, so we're hitting the 5th one, and that is The Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the 2nd book in the series of the Farseer trilogy. The first one was Assassin's Apprentice, and actually I reread it right before Royal Assassin, but it doesn't count for the Goodreads challenge, so I'm not gonna include it here. I'm just gonna mention the trilogy because it's amazing, and I have one more book left, and then I'll move on to the next trilogy and the next. And I gotta say, it was so nice getting back into the series. I missed it so much. On second reading, the first book held up in my esteem. It still is one of my favorite books, and this one really shifts the perspective because in Assassin's Apprentice we are following Fitz through his child years, I would say, but here he's becoming a teenager and he's moody and angsty, and the court intrigue is harder than ever. He's really trying to survive, but at the same time he's discovering his love, and this is something that he constantly has to battle with: his identity, where he belongs, what he wants from life, what he can actually do with his life, because he's very confined in the king's court. So this is something that I loved so much, and this book blew me away. And the animal aspect of this book remains one of my favorite things about the series as a whole. The fact that animal companions are so often used in this book, and not as a plot device but as legitimate characters, gave me so much reading joy. So I completely loved The Royal Assassin, and I will be picking up the last book, and I'm definitely not going to stop reading Robin Hobb because she's amazing and her books are long, wonderful chunks of joy. So yeah, definitely recommend it so much. On the list of favorites, obviously. After Royal Assassin I started work, which is why I've kind of switched to ebooks because they're easier to carry, and also when I go to sleep I can read without my bed light because I have a light in my Kindle Paperwhite. So yeah, the book that I read next is Who is to Blame by Jane Marlow. You might have heard me talking about this one in my NetGalley book haul because I mentioned it there. I requested it on NetGalley and I got to it pretty quickly because it's an interesting piece of historical fiction. It's set in Russia in the period of serfdom. I believe this is the second half of the 19th century, and serfdom in Russia was a period when folks like peasants were attached to their land, and their land was attached to a certain landowner or one of the noble people. So basically they worked without earning anything, and they just worked on their own land and on their owner's land, so it's basically a version of slavery. And this is set during the period that covers several decades, as the last years of serfdom kind of come near, and as the Tsar issues a new order to cancel serfdom, and it's following two perspectives. One is of a noble family of the Maximov, which owns a certain part of the land, and another is of a certain woman or girl, as she grows up to be a woman, from the serfs, and they have very different struggles. But I loved the book because it really managed to pull you in to the world and also covered some of the problems of nobility in Russia. In the end, it was a little detached from the heroes, as I felt. It didn't give me enough of emotional connection to them, even though I was interested till the very end. I felt like it was a very much outsider look on Russia, even though some problems are very relevant to Russia right now, and they were very relevant then. That is the problem of alcohol, the access of alcohol to serfs and nobility, the problem of nobles not knowing what to do with their lives because they felt useless and they had it all, so they didn't have to do any efforts to get where they wanted to go. So that's also covered in this book. It also, what's covered in this book is the problem, the life of women in serfdom, how much they were dependent on the society, on the patriarchal society that kept them confined in very strict rules. So if you were shit out of luck, you really had a very bad life. And so I really recommend this piece of historical fiction for those of you who would like to read something in a new period. You probably haven't read anything set in that period of time yet, so I think that would be a nice diversion from the usual historical fiction pieces that you might find. Next on, I read Promise of Fire by Amanda Bouchet. I requested this book because it had a very Xena-like description and also book cover. I love Xena. I'm still like 2 seasons away from finishing it. I just have to find the time, but I really loved the Greek vibe, so I gave this book a try. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I wanted to. Basically, it's a kidnap story following this mysterious character, this woman that I can't even remember her name. This really means Cat. Her name is Cat. See, if you don't remember a character's name, that really sucks. So basically, Cat is on the run from a very traumatic past, and as she is struggling to remain unrecognized, she encounters a warlord who just came into power, and he's looking for allies, and he recognizes power and Cat and basically kidnaps her, even though he does it very politely, but he kidnaps her and he takes her back to his kingdom in the hopes that she will help him with her magic abilities. Now, I don't have a problem with the idea of a story starting out as a kidnapping story, because I think this has a lot of potential, especially to show morally great characters, but this book was very romance heavy, and not in a good way, because even though I enjoyed romances in general and many other books, here it felt like it started out real well because the banter was really strong, but then I found that both of the characters were behaving not acceptably towards each other because they were both kind of violent. It worked for them, it was fun to read about, but it didn't make me want to continue with the series. And as we moved towards the end of the book, I found that the list of flaws for our main heroine just grew exponentially. Aside from being a Mary Sue, she was just also quite annoying, and the main love interest really was out of limits and out of bounds, and basically I found it was a bit too unrealistic, and it's also quite boring, and the characters didn't invite any sympathy, so I just gave up with it. I finished the first book, gave it 2.75, you can read my review on Goodreads, but I went 1 chapter into the sequel and immediately gave up. The sequel was even worse. So there's that. That's one book that I didn't quite enjoy reading this month of January, but yeah, you get what you get, and now I get to tell you guys about it. Next, I read a wonderful, wonderful book. It's Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and you probably heard about it. It's going to be trending real hard right now because it's a really, really nice YA read. It also is very reminiscent of The Night Circus, but where The Night Circus is kind of slow and sometimes melancholy, this is a very fast-paced, action-driven story, and this is kind of a nice balance to The Night Circus element in it. It's following a story of two sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, and Scarlett has been dreaming of running away to this magical competition and show of the Caraval from when she was a little girl, but she never really gets a chance to go there until she finally is coming close to getting married, and right then, right there, she is being invited to this Caraval circus-like place, and she is really driven into it by circumstances. I really loved the first sentence of the book as well. I believe it took 8 years to get the letter right, or something like that, something along those lines, and I really liked the pull of the first sentence, and I really liked the characters of the book overall. It had a very nice mystery element, it had a lot of magic, it was very colorful and spunky. What you may not like about this book is that Scarlett, the protagonist, while she is the elder sister, she is very, very naive, so if you have an issue with naive characters, this might be a big flag for you, but I somehow managed to handle it, and she didn't annoy me at all, like after maybe 15% through, because I kind of felt for her and sympathized, and I found the suspense and the twists and turns so delightful. Some were predictable, some were not, but overall I was like left like when you're going on a car like at a really high speed through turns and bumps, and you're like, whoa, wow, whoa. So this book was like that, and I was so happy I got to read something like that because it was super exciting. So yeah, Caraval, keep it on your radar. Maybe you will like it as well as I did, maybe you won't, but hey, if you read it, let me know down in the comments. Second to last book I read in January was The Diabolic by S.J. Kincaid, and this is really also a pretty discussed book in BookTube, and I got it for review and I really enjoyed it. So I have a full review, so I won't be talking too much about it here since this video is probably ages long already. You can see my review when you click on the I button in the corner, but just so you know, this is a really cool book. It's set in space, it's following humans when they have colonized space, and it's following our protagonist Nemesis, who is a humanoid and genetically engineered person who is very ruthless and very strong and is meant to be a bodyguard or protector to her master. And to keep her away from danger, Nemesis has to be pretending to be human in the court of the Space Emperor. And this really is a cool premise because being human or appearing human when you're not is quite a challenge, and especially when you're kind of getting into it, it's hard to see whether you're human or not and what makes you human, and can you be human at all if you're genetically engineered. And so I really love this book. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I'll definitely be reading the sequel because this was a fun read. Can you believe that I managed to squeeze one more book into the month of January? I don't know how I did it, but it was pretty short, but it was really also really funny. Exactly what I needed to read on the commute so that it wouldn't be like too strong of a pull, so that I could kind of close it and go to work without keeping on thinking about it the whole day, but it was still funny and a great pick-me-up. I'm talking about Rasputin's Supernatural Dating Service by D. Hammons, and I gotta tell you that this book is everything that the cover promises you. It is about Rasputin. Rasputin was an advisor to the king in Russia who got brutally murdered in several very different ways, but in this book he actually manages to survive, and he thrives in America, creating his own dating service for supernatural citizens of the United States. We're following Leigh as he is actually being a certifier for the service. He's going to different supernatural houses and makes sure that they really are supernatural, like they're vampires or Frankenstein monsters or whatever the heck they want to be. As long as they are supernatural, he signs them up for the service and they can find their own match. So it's a fantastically amusing book, and I gave it 4 stars. And I think it's funny how we need to make sure we judge the books by how well they deliver their purpose. I mean, I wouldn't compare like Rasputin's supernatural dating service against Pride and Prejudice because they have 2 different purposes, but each of them is really good in their own way. So I am not shying away from giving high ratings to books that are more fun or silly perhaps, because they're still at the core of them deliver what they promised. So I think it's a wonderful read. I definitely recommend it. It's super hilarious. It's also very naughty and very flirty and has a lot of innuendos and sexual references, so if you're on the adult, immature side, you will definitely love this book a lot. But hey guys, that was it. I read 10 books in the month of January. I don't have as high hopes for February because I am more of a realist this month. I don't have as much time, and I do think it was a very strong start to the year. Let me know whether you are interested in any of the books I mentioned in this wrap-up below. If you read any of them, let's discuss, because this is the whole point of BookTube. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel below, because discussing books is the best thing ever after reading them. Reading comes first and then discussing. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye!